Alright then, what's up? Spending a lot of time trying to get me and the backdrop in this video. One moment. Because as you can tell, there's a lot of noise in the background, so I thought you might as well be seeing what you're hearing. Salud, welcome to the second video. Only 2 videos in, and it's apparent I might need a tripod. But with that said, I only am allowed 5 kg of luggage, and I've maxed out that for sure. Alright, so check it out. I figured I would do one more of these videos, and since I'm might be nice to see me. Figured I'd do one more of these videos here in the same apartment, just on the balcony, and because my dude Tommy that I met brought me this beer, and I met Tommy very randomly, but I might give him a shout out. I think he said he had a channel. I don't know, it's unrelated. I started doing this after meeting him, so we didn't really chat about it, but yeah, he's a good dude. Everybody should show him some love, so I might put him on there. But thanks for the beer, Tommy, and adding to the progress of this channel. So I guess I'm just going to continue with Not in His Image again, and see how that goes, because you know what, with all this noise in the background, I think it's kind of good, because I'm still not sure how copywriting is going to like this channel, so I got to change it up as much as possible. But it's all for the purpose of sharing. And like I said, I want to have a compilation of books that I've read that can be a bit more than a list or something. And, you know, I don't have to carry it around with me. All right. So, lo and behold, here we go. Introduction to this book is actually pretty long, and it talks mostly about the author, which I've already mentioned, John Lamlash. And it's funny, speaking of copyright, because YouTube has already taken note of that I've mentioned him in the last video. And so, I don't know, see how many times I can get away with mentioning him. So I will start with chapter 1. And hopefully this answers some questions that you might have from, it's a bit better, from the first video, because there was a lot of, it's hard to start something in the middle. And so, chapter 1 of Not in His Image is called The Murder of Hypatia, and she was mentioned in the first one. So, on a spring day in the year 415 CE, a pagan noblewoman emerged from the lecture hall attached to the great library of Alexandria and called for her chariot, intending to drive herself home. Although there were many educated pagan women of high social standing and good education in Alexandria in that era, Hypatia, as she was called, was one of the few who owned and drove her own chariot. A familiar sight at the local populace she often halted her horses and descended into the street to chat amiably with the local people, or to debate issues of philosophy with whomever might wish to engage her. Her openness, combined with her kind and elegant manner, won her the admiration and affection of the townsfolk. Hypatia was also active. I'm noticing now my voice is really hoarse. I just spent 2 days having food poisoning, actually, so not the best time to do this video. I just figured, damn, I haven't left the apartment in a couple days, so I might as well do something. Promises to get better in the future. All right. Hypatia, everybody loves her. She was also active in an official capacity in civic affairs normally dominated by men. Quote, such were her self-possession and ease of manner, arising from the refinement and cultivation of her mind, that she not infrequently appeared in public in presence of the magistrates without ever losing in an assembly of men that dignified modesty of comportment for which she was conspicuous and which she gained for her universal respect and admiration. God damn, folks. I think that's the dehydration slowing the brain down. I don't think that part's important. Anyway, next paragraph. Hypatia's beauty was legendary and equaled only, it was said, by her intelligence. Tall and confident, commanding her chariot with ease, clothed in a long robe and the signature scarf of the teaching class, she must have cut a striking figure in the thriving streets of what most cosmopolitan cities. No realistic image of her survives. On that March day in 1415, as Hypatia entered a public square near the Cistercian church, where Christian converts were known to gather. Caesarean church? Oh, fine. She found her path blocked by a menacing crowd. At the head of a group stood a rough-looking man called Peter the Reader, who roused those gathered to approach Hypatia and impede her way. Now this Peter was a perfect believer in all respects of Jesus Christ, a zealot convert who admired Cyril, the Christian bishop of Alexandria. Anyway, that's a quote from a guy. I mean, they're random. Recently, when a local prefect prosecuted one of Cyril's proteges for openly attacking pagan doctrines, Hypatia had sided with the prefect, and the man was severely admonished. Cyril had an axe to grind with Hypatia, although he could not afford to look bad in the public eye by acting openly against her. Long after the fateful day, many of the town folks wondered if Peter the Reader had not been sent to avenge his master, or perhaps had acted independently, hoping to win the patriarch's approval. Public opinion held that Cyril, who was on record for calling Hypatia a sorceress, was complicit in the attack. Peter exhorted the crowd to throw tiles at Hypatia and pull her from her chariot. Her long robe and scarf proved an advantage to the mob, consisting mostly of rough-handed workmen. They quickly overpowered her by yanking hard on her loose clothing from all sides. Pulled to the ground, she struggled in vain to break free and run. The mass of grappling hands now began to strip off her robes. Members of the local populace stood by helplessly, paralyzed by the horror unfolding before their eyes. The violence of the mob escalated rapidly, its intensity fed by the raucous shouts of Peter the Reader. He called Hypatia a vile heretic and witch who beguiled people through her beauty and her teachings, which were nothing but the wiles of Satan. Now, we all know women like that, but I don't think Hypatia was one of them. But moving on, Hypatia protested and cried for help, but a stiff blow broke her jaw. In a matter of minutes, she was on her knees in a pool of her own blood. Crushed under a flurry of blows and kicks, she was rapidly beaten to death. Not content merely to take her life, the mob pounded her naked body to a pulp and tore her limbs off her torso. The number of attackers and the ferocity of their assault made it impossible for anyone witnessing the murder to intervene. That was fucking brutal. we know people are, of course, capable of horrendous acts of violence. R.I.P. Hypatia. Oh, man. When Hypatia was dead, the attitude of the mob shifted abruptly from outrage to triumph. These men, who were self-declared Christians, immediately began to exult in what they had done. The frenzy of victory was so acute, it could not be satisfied by the beating and dismemberment of the defenseless woman. As if emanating from their pores, some force of inhuman inspiration electrified the haze of violence that fumed around the murders. Wild-eyed with excitement, several members of the mob ran to the nearby harbor and scooped up the razor-sharp oyster shells to be found there in abundance. They returned and passed out shells, and Peter encouraged his henchmen to scrap every last morsel of flesh from Hypatia's bones. When the men were done, they took the scraped bones to a place called Cindron and burned them to ashes. Can't stop, won't stop. All right. Next section, wisdom incarnate. Hypatia was the daughter of a mathematician, Theon of Alexandria, the last known teacher in the age-old tradition of the mystery schools, the spiritual universities of antiquity. The year and the month of her death are known, and the year of her birth is less certain, but 370 CE is generally accepted. So, like I said, this man's a historian, so I think these are like first-hand accounts of that act, as it was portrayed. So, thus she would have been around 45 when she was murdered. Historians have long regarded her death as the event that defined the end of the classical civilization in Mediterranean Europe. It signaled the end of paganism and the dawn of the Dark Ages. Paganism, the generic term for pantheistic religion in the Western classical world, merits capitalization as much as Christianity. Theon was headmaster at the Museum of Alexandria, the place dedicated to the Muses, daughters of the ancient goddess of memory. That's the goddess name. Each of the Muses embodied a sacred art, such as astronomy, lyric poetry, and history. The 9 daughters of the memory presented a model for the curriculum of the mystery schools. Museums today are merely repositories for relics from the past, but the Alexandrian Museum was the setting for a wide range of living traditions, truly a center of higher education. The campus spread along the horseshoe-shaped port dominated by its pharos, the famous 400-foot-high lighthouse that ranked among the 7 wonders of the world. It included many independent academies dedicated to subjects as diverse as geometry and sacred dance, and training guilds that produced a constant stream of graduates in fields such as sculpture, botany, navigation, herbology, engineering, and medicine. That sounds like a nice place, huh? I wouldn't mind living around those times. The assemblies and guilds associated with the Royal Library had their own libraries and teaching faculties. In the year 400, when she was about 30, Hypatia assumed the chair of mathematics at the university school. This was a salaried position, equivalent to professorship in modern university. The daughter of Theon was noted for her mastery of Platonic philosophy and her skill in theurgy, literally God-working. a form of magical invocation that might be compared to Jungian active imagination, or more aptly, advanced practices of visualization in Tantra and Dzogchen. Her dialectical powers were exceptional, honed to a fine edge by her mathematical training. When it came to debating ideas about the divine, Hypatia eclipsed in argument every proponent of the Christian doctrines in northern Egypt. Let's say this again. When it came to debating ideas about the divine, this is a quote, Hypatia eclipsed in argument every proponent of the Christian doctrines in northern Egypt. So see, that's a literal fact. That's a quote from her time. First-hand accounts. I mean, she sounds brilliant. Look at this, like, she understands mathematics in a way that she can see the world where there's straight lines. And that's just helping her visualize everything that's not straight. Yeah. I mean, anybody who knows calculus, you follow what I'm saying. Wow. But yeah, brilliant. Her expertise in theology typified the pagan intellectual class of the Gnostics, or Gnostikoi. Quote, those who understand divine matters, knowing as the gods know. But she was also deeply versed in geometry, physics, and astronomy. Ancient learning was multidisciplinary and eclectic, contrasting strongly to the narrow specialization of higher education and the sciences in our time. And I just respect that so much. I mean, anybody who's not sure what they're talking about there, just look up the term, leave it to me to forget a word, midstream. It's like a word like minimalization. I think this is when other YouTubers just link it in the, mention it in the comments or something. Fuck is that word? I mean, it's the concept of when people are so specialized that they just see this thin line and they're like, oh, this. But if they knew how deep this was, because it's actually connected to this line, but they always stay on that one single plane, so they're not making deeper connections. Although they know this better than anybody, they're just, it's not interdisciplinary. A lot of our institutions nowadays, even history, you have like history of art or history of botany, but they're all playing a role. What is the word? It's like, I'll think of it by the end of this video. Back to the book. Contrasting strongly to the narrow specialization of higher education and the sciences in our time. The word philosophy means love of wisdom. To Gnostics, Sophia was a revered divinity. Philosophia. Love, wisdom, God of wisdom, Sophia. The goddess whose story they recounted in their sacred cosmology. To the people of her time and setting, Hypatia would have been wisdom incarnate. In addition to their religious function, the mysteries provided the framework for education along interdisciplinary lines. The Gnostikoi were polymaths, savants, and prolific writers. From around 600 BCE to Hypatia's time, a period of 1,000 years, they produced countless thousands of scrolls stored in the Royal Library of Alexandria and other libraries attached to mystery centers around the Mediterranean basin. Hypatia is known to have written a treatise on arithmetic and commentaries on the astronomical canon of Ptolemy. and the conic sections of Apollonius of Perga. None of her writings survive, but 8 ancient sources describe her murder and her accomplishments, the latter not always in an approving manner. Cyril, whom popular opinion implicated in her murder, became an important theologian known for formulating the doctrine of the Holy Trinity. So this is early stuff, y'all. Early times. We're digging deep into the past in this book. Cyril was later canonized by the Church along with other early Christian ideologues, the so-called Church Fathers, men whose theological polemics and histories of the one true faith celebrate its triumph over heretics such as she. Hypatia's accomplishments were not confined to theology and didactics. She was also involved in applied science related to geography and astronomy. Working with the Greek scientist Synesius, who was proud to be called her student, she invented a prototype of the astrolabe, a device later to prove essential in the navigation of the world oceans for the twinned purposes of conquest and conversion. Wow, that's just some fucking irony right there. It's 20 minutes. I still got a little bit of beer left. Either I'm reading fast or drinking slow. I wonder what Hypatia would say. No, I don't wonder. I'm pretty obviously reading slow. This chapter goes on and on, so that's why we're just trying to go one beer deep. Obviously, you're only listening now if you find this topic interesting, or you're not listening now because I talk too much. Let's see. So, next section, pagan learning. Hypatia's birthplace was founded by Alexander the Great on January 20, 331 BCE. For the next 1,000 years until the coming of Islam, it would look to the Mediterranean and the wider world. Alexandria's full title was Alexandria by Egypt, not in Egypt. It was founded on an entrepot through which the wealth of Egypt would flow, and within 2 centuries it would become the crossroads for the entire world, the El Dorado of the Hellenistic age. In the 1st century AD, Alexandrian merchants sailed to South India on the monsoon winds, linking up with the trade of the Ganges, Vietnam, and China. Shout out Vietnam. Part of the explosion of ideas and contact initiated by the age of Alexander. In Hypatia's lifetime, her native city was still the greatest cosmopolitan center of antiquity, the undisputable capital of the Western world, commercially, spiritually, and intellectually speaking, but it belonged to an empire teetering on the brink of collapse. She was born around 10 years after the initial wave of barbarians, the Huns, poured into Europe, and 6 years after the Roman Empire was divided geographically between East and West. In her lifetime, the Roman legions evacuated Britain, conquered by Julius Caesar 4.5 centuries earlier, and the borders of the empire shook continually from barbarian assaults. In 410, when Hypatia would have been 40, Alaric, chieftain of the Visigoths, captured and sacked Rome, inflicting a mortal blow on the empire. At that very moment, Augustine of Hippo was writing The City of God, a book destined to become a cornerstone of Catholic doctrine. As the Roman Empire shattered and burned, another imperial entity, the institution of the Catholic Church, was rising in its place. A fateful handover of power was in progress. So, like I said, this book gets to the crux of it all. I'm not sure if there's anything juicy worth getting to, like, just ahead, because I didn't plan this. But it definitely goes on and on and on. And, yeah. Highly enlightening story. I think, there we go. Now I'm looking at the, can't put this book down. Beer's pretty much gone. I'll just give you a quick look over here. So yeah, if you can handle all that noise, that's basically what it sounds like living in the middle of Hanoi, Vietnam. Right smack dab in the city. Before I say goodbye, just show the apartment a little bit, little thing. Got the loft stairs. Come into the fridge. Take a sip of your coconut. All right then, go pick up a book.